Aloha and welcome. In this video, we're going to be talking about Project 29.2 AP mode. This is a continuation of the chapter 29, and we're going to be talking about setting up your Pico in AP mode, which is essentially the access point mode. So you're going to be connecting to your Pico from other devices. So our setup is going to be dead simple. We're just going to have our Pico. You don't even need it in the breadboard, but we're going to leave it in there because later on we're going to need to do something. So we're just going to keep our Pico on the breadboard, and we're going to plug it in, the USB-A into it. If you have any trouble where you try something and you want to revise some things, you need to unplug it and plug it back in. We learned that in the last video. So anyway, let's continue on here. There's a couple of things that we need to know. This is what the access point looks like. Your Pico is going to be running as the access point, and we're going to try connecting to it from a station like over here. We can do it from either a computer or an iPhone. Maybe I'll show you both right now, but the code is not terribly complicated. I'll get into that in the other screen, but yeah, I'll just demonstrate it. It's a lot easier to do it this way. So here's what our code looks like. We're starting out with import network. We're going to go over here. We're going to set up an SSID name. The SSID name is your service set identifier. That's essentially the name that you see that you're going to connect to. Like at home, you would you associate that name with your router. The password is going to be the password that we use. Never ever set your password to password, but because I'm lazy and I want to do this quickly, I'm just setting it to password. And then for our local IP, I've got that set to 192.168.110. The gateway is going to be 192.168.1.1. Subnet is 255.255.255.0, and DNS is Google's DNS, which is 8.8.8.8. So I realized I didn't explain what a lot of these numbers are. I kind of assumed that everybody knows, but just in case you don't know, computers identify themselves on a network using an IP address. That's the Internet Protocol address. So that's an octet of 4 different numbers separated by decimals, and each number goes from 0 to 255. So your IP address essentially specifies what your address is. And then your gateway is where you're going to go to get to the rest of the internet. So when you're ready to go somewhere outside of your network, it needs to know where to go to make that decision as to where to, to push it next. And then your subnet simply describes how it's describing to the computer how to separate out the network from the host information in your IP address. And then the DNS, DNS is domain name service. Domain name service, think of it as well, I'm talking to a younger group, think of it as a phone book. A phone book used to be this big book that we had people's names and their phone numbers in it. That analogy is kind of weak these days, I guess, but the idea is that when you need to find something like, let's say you've got CNN.com and you want to know the IP address of it, you go to what we call a DNS server, the domain name service, and they take names like CNN.com or www.hello.com, and they translate that into an IP address that your router can then use to figure out, or your computer can then use to figure out where it needs to push it next in the line. So that's a very brief overview of TCP/IP. TCP is Transport Control Protocol. IP is Internet Protocol. Those are the two protocols that you use to do networking, essentially, in the modern age. So let's get down here to APIF. So APIF, the AP is stands for access point. IF, so when you're doing network configuration in Apple and Linux, you're using something called ifconfig, and that will tell you what information you've got on your on your networks, on your network interfaces. So the IF here stands for interface. I don't like it, but that's what it stands for. So here we're using the network module, and we're going in, we're saying, okay, we're setting up our wide area LAN, and we're setting it to be AP. So we're telling it here that we're setting up for access point mode. And then we have a function here that's going to set it up. So we go down here to our try is going to call that. It's going to send in our AP, our SSID for the AP, and it's going to send the password for the AP. So we're going to go up here. We're going to do a disconnect in the beginning, just to disconnect. And then we're going to do an if config, and we're setting here 3 different things. We're sending a list of 3 different things. We're sending the local IP address, we're sending the gateway that we're going to need to use, and we're sending the, 4 things, the subnet and the DNS. So this cluster of information right here, we're sending to it. And then it's going to print out a little note for us. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to configure the AP once we have that established. We're going to go ahead and we're going to say that the ESS ID is essentially the extended service set ID. Don't worry about that. We're just setting the name of it here, and we're setting the password. And then we're going to go and we're going to activate it. And then it should end like that. So we're going to run this, and it should take a minute or so well, maybe not a minute. We'll see how long it takes. So we're going to go ahead and run this. And we see that, boom, it's up. So this thing is running. So now let's go into my settings, and hopefully these will come up here. So we'll go into Wi-Fi, and we should see a very interesting, well, let's look for it. We should, oh, here we go, ITS 381. Here it is. And we can click on connect. And I'm not going to do that because that'll cut me off from the internet, because our Pico is not connected to the internet. So I'm just going to, well, actually, let me show you it on the iPhone now, and that would probably be even better. So let me go over here, and I'm going to stop my share. And then after I stop sharing, I'm going to go ahead and reshare, but I'm going to share the iPhone. So let me share my iPhone settings here. Here we go. So, well, that was not what I expected. So what I can do here is I can click on ITS 381. So I'm going to click on that. And I already ran this earlier, so it remembers my password. Oh, unable to join, that's fine. So so we're going to hit that. And it joined. And it only joined because I had already given it the information before. So let me go ahead and say, forget this network, so it forgets it. So it's going to treat it just like we'd never seen it before. So we're going to go down here and we're going to click on ITS 381. It's going to ask us for our password. We type in password, and then we click on join. This is all on an iPhone. So if you've got Android, I'm sure it's a similar experience, but just a little bit different. So there we are. We are now connected. So this is the joy of doing this. We can set up our own little internal network here. And notice it says no internet connection, because it knows that it doesn't have access beyond that Pico. So that is that. So that is the end of lesson 29.2. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm always happy to help. And I know I've been very light on information for TCP/IP and stuff like that for networking. So if you have any questions about that specifically, feel free to reach out, and I'd be happy to answer those questions. I've done a lot of stuff with it. It's really not that difficult, but I sometimes forget that people haven't been exposed to it. So if you have any questions on that, feel free to reach out. Other than that, enjoy, and I'll see you in the next lesson.